Hello everybody. Today I will discuss about one important concept, that is final keyword in Java. How you can use final keyword. Actually Java supports many keywords. I think in the yesterday's session we were discussing about the static. Today we will discuss about final. So where you can use final, those things we'll discuss. The final keyword in Java is used to restrict the user. This is the main point. Whenever you want to restrict something, you have to use final. The name indicates what? It is final. That means you cannot change, you cannot modify, you cannot extend like this. So in Java, the final keyword is used to indicate that a variable or method or a class cannot be modified or cannot be extended. So once it is defined as a final, you cannot change. So a final keyword can be used in three places: before variable name, before class name, as well as before method name. So if you use the final keyword, remember final keyword is written in the lowercase. Of course, all the keywords in Java are lowercase. If you use the final keyword before the variable, then that variable become constant. Generally, two types of variable. One is normal variable, another is final variable. Normal variable means which will allow you to modify, whereas final variable means which will never allow you to modify. So to create constant, you can create a final variable. For example, if I write here int I, then automatically I is a normal variable. If I write here final int I, then this become final variable, constant variable. If it is a constant variable, then you have to assign some data. For example, 10. So that means I is always 10 only. I is always 10 only. So for that purpose, if you want to make it lifelong constant, go for final. So whenever you want to declare a constant variable in Java, then use final keyword. Similarly, there is one more place where you can use final. If you want to write the final keyword before a class name, then the class become final. If the class is final, you cannot extend, you cannot inherit. So that means it prevents inheritance. So whenever you want to stop inheritance, whenever you want to prevent inheritance, then you can use the final keyword before the class. So you can write like final class sum A. If you write this one, automatically this A become final class. You cannot inherit, you cannot extend. So that is the advantage in the final class. Because sometimes some application may say that whatever the specification is given, you have to follow that one. You should not modify, you should not change. In that case, go for final. Similarly, there is another place. You can use the final also before method name. If you want to use final keyword before method name, then what is the advantage? The advantage is you cannot override. Generally, in inheritance based program, you can override. But I may say that do not override any method. Whatever the methods are given in the parent, that should be same only. Nobody should change. So in that case, you can use the final keyword. So before method name, if you write final, that method become final. You cannot override. Okay. So now we'll see one by one how you can use. So try to know the usage of the final keyword before the three items: variable name, class name, and method name. First we will see about final variable, because there are a lot of things are there internally. Those things you should know. Once we declare a variable with the final keyword, we cannot change its value again. Okay. If we attempt to change the value of the final variable, then it will give a compile time error. So during comparison time, it will generate error if you try to change a final variable. So final variable only can be initialized only once. Second time onwards you cannot modify, you cannot assign. So final variable must and should be initialized. Generally, we can consider a final variable as a constant. As the final variable acts like a constant, whose value cannot be changed. We cannot just declare a variable as a final without initializing. A variable must and should be, that means a final variable must and should be initialized, because later on you cannot change. That is, we have to give it in the initial value while declaring a final variable. So this point you should remember. If you declare the final variable without initialization, then a blank variable will be generated. Generally, this is useful inside the class as a member. If it is a class member, means instance member, then you can declare as a blank final variable. But if a normal, as a normal variable, means as a parameter or local variable, then those variable must and should be initialized. But it is mandatory to initialize a final variable. It is mandatory to initialize a final variable either during the declaration or after declaration. If we leave it uninitialized, then you will get a initialization error. So you cannot leave alone. You must and should assign some value. Now the syntax, if you observe, final int number equal 10. That means my number is a final one whose value is 10. Whose value is 10. Similarly, final float value. If you declare this way, this is a blank final variable. It is a blank final variable. Similarly, static final double rate equal to 0.5. So it is a final as well as static. That means before final you can use static also. So that means it is a class variable. At the same time, it is a final variable also. It is a final variable. At the same time, static variable also. So remember, before variable name, you can use multiple keywords like static and final also. Next, one small program. Here I wrote what final int max salary equal to this. This is my final salary, maximum salary and final. And final int ID. Here I have not given the ID value. What is the ID of the employee? I have not given. That is a blank. So those variables, because it is a member variable, it is a this member variable can be a blank, because later on while creating object you can initialize through constructor. So for that sake you can declare a final. So when you pass a number, this number you can assign to the ID, where the ID is my final. So that means you can change, you can update only in the initialization stage, because when my object is initialized, that time the constructor will be called, and the constructor will be called only once. That's why the blank variable should be initialized through the constructor, not through the normal methods. Similarly, get detail. Get detail is what? It is a normal method. It is trying to print the both value, ID as well as max salary. So it is printing ID of the employee is this and max salary is. Then public static void main employee details, new employee details with 154. That means I am passing 154 as a value to this number. This 154 is assigned to my ID. So that means lifelong that ID is 154 only. You cannot change now. Now I am printing the details of the employee. What it will print? It will print ID as well as salary. Now here both are my final variable, but one is final variable with some value and one more is final blank variable. But I am initializing during the object creation. So this is a simple program to use the final keyword. Now how to use the second technique? How to use the final keyword before method? Because I told you final can be used in multiple places. You can use before the method also. We can declare the method as final by adding the final keyword before the method name. That become a constant method. You cannot change, you cannot override. So the method with final keyword cannot be overridden in the subclass. Generally in the subclasses you can change. Parent's property can be overridden by the child. But when you say final method of the parent, then child cannot override. Child cannot override. But it can access, but it cannot override. Again, there is a difference in private and final. If the parent's property is a private, then that cannot be visible or that cannot be used by the child. Whereas here, if the variable is final, it can use, but it cannot override. It cannot change. Okay, that is the difference in private and final. And I'll give a small program also. First, let us go through this topic. The purpose of the final method is to declare the method and how the definition cannot be changed by the subclass and extend it. So in parent class, you cannot extend. The purpose of creating the final method is to restrict the unwanted and improper use of method definition and while overriding the method. So, whatever the guidelines are given or whatever the statements are given in the parent method, that method should be follow. You should not modify. You should not edit. So, to make method to be fixed and should not be edited by others, then go for final. Then there is a small program where I should not change the statements what is given by my parent. Assume there is a class called pet animal. When I say pet animal having some special features. What are the features? It is having number of legs. How many legs? Generally 4 legs. How many ears? Ears 2. How many eyes? And how many tail? 1. These are the fixed value. They are the fixed value. So that means where I wrote a method called characteristics. For pet animal there is a characteristics. Number of legs are fixed. Number of ears are fixed. Number of eyes are fixed. As well as number of tails are fixed. So whatever the statement I have written in my method, it should be final. Nobody should change because I know that this value is fixed. Nobody should change either knowingly or unknowingly. So that's why I wrote here final keyword. Once I write final keyword, then the method is fixed. Whatever the statement I wrote, that only you have to use. You cannot modify. So now I wrote this value and printing this value. Legs printing, eyes, ears and tails. So automatically it will print the same answer. Now there is a method called sound. Every animal makes sound. Assume when I call sound, the sound will vary from animal to animal. The dog will have some sound. The cat will have some other sound. The goat will have some other sound. Different animal will have different sound. That's why I did not make this as a final. This I made as a normal method. This method I can override. If I go to cat, you will get different sound. If I go to dog, you will get one more sound. If I go to cow, I will get one more sound. So depending upon the animal, the sound will be changing. So that's why I made this method as a non-final. That means I can override. So this method is allowed to override. Now here I am having a class called pet dog. Pet dog is class which extends from animal. That means pet animal is what? It is my parent. From pet animal, I am having a class called pet dog. So in pet animal, I am having what method? Characteristic as well as sound. I am having the methods like characteristic is a method, but is a final method. Similarly, sound is another method, but it is a non-final. So this sound method I can override. I can write something. I can make new sound. So here in the sound, when I call the sound method of the pet dog, then it says bo bo. So this sound is coming from the dog. Earlier I wrote only animal sound. Now when I go to dog, I will get bo bo sound. If I go to cat, I will get meow meow sound. So the sounds are changing from animal to animal. That's why this method should not be final. Now let me create a object of P, pet dog P. I got an object of dog. Then P dot characteristics. Automatically, whatever the methods are there in the parent, those statements of the method will be printed. Means that will be executed. You cannot change. Whereas sound, P dot sound, that means this sound is coming. Which sound? My pet dog sound. So this sound is coming. Because it is a non-final. So depending upon the requirement, you can use the corresponding method. So here my method is final. Which method? The characteristic method is final. You cannot modify. Whereas sound is non-final. You can modify. So sound can be modified. So whenever the application demands some data should be fixed, it should not be changed, then go for final. Now I'll go to another program. The final method generates compile time error. If you try to override a final method, then you will get a error. Assume class parent having a final with some statements. Again I am writing class child extends parent Again final method. Here final method is there, here also final method. In parent, final method is there. In child also final method is there. Now if I try to override, then we will get a error. What time? During compilation time. During compilation time. So the compiler will not permit to change. So the above example, the final method generates a compile time error. As the parent class final method is overridden by the child class, so it is not possible in the Java programming language. You cannot change. Now, how to use the final class? This is the third concept. We can use the final keyword before the class also. So we can declare a class with final keyword. So that means you cannot inherit. When you declare the class as final, then we restrict the other classes to inherit or to extend it. Nobody should extend. In short, the Java final class cannot be extended by other classes in inheritance. Even there are built-in methods, built-in classes, which is given by our James Gosling. Some methods he made is final. That means you cannot override. So, some methods, whatever the statements are already fixed, nobody should change. Those methods I will make it final. If another class attempt to extend the final class, then there will be a compilation error. If at all somebody try to extend from the final class, then the compiler will give error. A small example. Final class A. Now what you wrote? Final. That means class A is final. Class B extends A. Now you are extending what? The class A. But A is final class. A is final class. So when you are trying to extend final class, then the compiler will give error. So during compilation stage, it will stop you. It will not allow you to execute. Now we'll go for some more varieties of problems on final. Let us check. Let us go to the program. Final examples. Okay. Now I told you final can be used in three places. Let us have a small application. Final. As you said, animal class. The animal class having some certain characteristics. Those characteristics nobody should change. So I'll make those as a final. So let me make final int I, final int legs equal to 4 legs fix. Final int years equal to 2 years. Final int head equal to 1. Final int tail equal to 1. So I made it fix. This is fix. General behavior or general characteristics. Those things I want to write or I want to display in a. Now these are what final variable. Final variable. Now we'll have a final method also. What? Final. Generally if I write, for example, there are final characteristics. If I write this one, it says what? This method is normal method. That means I can override. Whereas my goal is this method should not be overridden by others. So I will make as a final. If I write final, the method become final. Now I want to print those things. System.out.println the number of legs equal to plus legs. Okay, plus yes equal to plus yes plus I'm printing everything in a single line. Of course, you can print in 2 lines also. Yes, let me write one more line. Control C, Control V, and I'm printing head and tail. Now I'm writing head. head and tail. Okay. So now this method is printing what? My final information. And I will not display anything else because that is my final target. To display only number of heads, number of tails, number of ears, that's all. And there are some information related to animal which may change. For example, making sound. So void sound. So what is the general sound of animal? I cannot say because the sound varies from animal to animal. So here simply I'll say make sound. System dot out dot println. I'll say natural sound. Natural sound. Simply I'll print a message. But based upon the animal, the sound will be changing. Now what I will do? I will define one class cat. Cat is another animal. It is having its own sound. So I want to make cat to be a child of the parent. Who is the parent here? Parent is animal. So extends animal. So that means I will get the property of parent to child. Now this method, which method? Characteristic method, which is final, I cannot write, override. So here I cannot write, but I can make the sound. Here what I will do, the sound part I will change it. I will make it what? The sound is, because it's a cat sound, I will write meow. So meow meow sound will come for the cat. Similarly, I will write one more class because here what? Same sound I am overriding. This is method overriding. This is method overriding. Method overriding. Generally, method overriding comes in terms of inheritance concept. So, whatever the method is there in the parent, same method I am writing, but with a different logic. Okay. Similarly, I am writing one more class called dog. So, you can have multiple child from a single parent. Now, I am having one more parent called cow. Extends animal, but sound will be changing. Amba, amba is. So, sound of cow is changing. So, that's why I am overriding. Similarly, I am writing one more. Dog. So, the sound of dog is changing. And a bo sound. So, this method I am not making final. If I make this as the final, I cannot override. So, I will say that for every animal the sound will be the same. But it's not possible. Now, I will give a demo on this class. Demo, final demo or demo final. In this class, I will try to create object of different classes. So, I will go to my driver method, public, static, void, main, string, arguments array. Okay. Now, here what happened? I will create the object of 3. One is cat, C is the object. Next, dog, D is the object. And another is cow is there. Cow, assume W. So that means I am having 3 different objects. Those objects I will initialize. So how to initialize? C equal to new cat. So that means I am creating object of the cat. Similarly, D equal to new dog. Fine. Similarly, W equal to new cow. So I made 3 objects of 3 animals: dog, cow, and cat. Now I want to display what? The characteristics as well as the sound of each animal. So C dot characteristics. This is the method of the cat. Similarly, C dot sound. So I am printing the sound of the cat. Similarly, I want to print the dog sound as well as the cow sound. D, D, and the characteristics of cow. Of course, the object name can be anything. Simply for clarity, I am writing one letter. Now here, demo final dot Java. So my program name is demo final. Okay. Control C. Go to the command prompt. Execute. Java C. Control V. Dot Java. Yes. Here what I got error. What? C dot sound. Why I am getting this error? Here I wrote SHO only. Sorry. It should be yes, because my in the here also sound. There I called sound. Here I wrote SHO. So there is a spelling mistake. Control S. Yeah. Now no error. Java C. Okay. Now Java demo final. Now I will get what? Characteristics for 3 different animals. Yeah. For cat, I got this information. For dog, I got this information. And for cow, I got this information. So for 3 object, I call both the methods. Overridden method, non-overridden methods. Okay. So this is the way you can do it. For example, I want to override the characteristic method. If I try to override the characteristic method, then I'll get error. Please observe here. In a cat, I have tried to write the method. Here, I want to write the number of legs equal to, let's say, 3. If I write 3, what will happen? Now, as I am overriding, I should get an error message. Yeah. Here, if you observe here, it cannot be override. Characteristic is a final. Okay, this method is a final. You cannot override. Overridden method is final. You are not allowed to override. That's why you should not change. So this method you should know. So I should remove this. If I remove this, then no error. Because I kept comment. Kept comment means cancelled. Now compile it again. Yeah, now no error. Now run it. Java followed by demo fine. Now I got the answer. Yes. Fine. So this is the way we are able to execute. Now I'll give one more example of this final. Control N class A open bracket close bracket public static void main string arguments array. If I write here, for example, int I equal to 10. Again I wrote here I equal to I plus 2. Again I wrote final int j equal to 20. J equal to j plus 3. Now I will ask you print the value of I and j. System dot out dot println I value how much that I want print plus j value also I want print j equal to plus j. Now here I is my normal variable and whatever the j is my final variable. J is my final. Here I can change, whereas here I cannot modify. So here you will get an error message. Here you will get an error message. Now let us check. The name of the program is a.java. a dot Java. Now if I go to command prompt and run, compile it, Java C, a dot Java. Yeah, I got an error. Here the error is not because of the here I got the error because of plus symbol. Plus I. This error is different. Yeah. Here after I also there must be, because we are doing concatenation, do plus symbol. Yeah, now we got the real error. J equal j plus 3. Because j is my final variable, you cannot change. That's why the error is coming. So whenever this error comes, you have to remove this statement. Put a comment. Now no error. Yeah, now no error. So now if I run Java followed by A. Yeah, I got I is 12, J 20. I 12, J 20. So this is the way you can use the final variable. I'll give one more program. Control A, Control N, class B. Here I am having final int I equal to 10. Final int J. See here, J I have not initialized. Simply I declare J as a final. Now J is what? It is a member variable. It is not a local variable. It is a member variable, but it is final. So this J is member and J is final. J is member as well as J is final, but you have not initialized. If you have not initialized, then you will get a separate concept that is called blank variable. This J is also known as blank variable. J is blank because you have not given any value. J is blank. Now B is my constructor. In the constructor, I can initialize the value J equal to some 25. So that means whenever the object is created, the J will be initialized. And this will be done how many times? Only one time. So this blank variable will be filled with the data. How much? 25. Now I will say show data. Word show. This final variable you can display in any method. There is no restriction. So system dot out dot println I value how much? Plus I and plus J equal to plus J. So automatically I will get the I and J value. Now I will write my method public static void main string arguments array open bracket close bracket. Here what I will do, I will create the object of B first. B is my class. I will create the object. B is the class. Obj is the object. Equal to new B. When I am creating the instance, automatically the constructor will be called and the value J will be initialized. Now true object I will call obj dot show. Control S. B dot Java. Now you load command prompt, run it, clear the screen. Java C B dot Java. Now here final it should be final. L is missing. Control S. Compile it. Yeah. Now compile successfully. So here normal variable means final variable with initialization, final variable without initialization. Whenever you are having a final member variable without initialization, that is called blank variable. That blank variable you can initialize through constructor. Now show Java followed by B. Yeah, I got I10, J25. Is it okay? So this is the way you can use final variable with value, final variable without value. Here I is 10 and J is initially nothing, blank. But J is initialized through constructor. Whereas Now I'll give one more example here. Final int k. Now here k is not a memory variable, it is a local variable to the main method. In that case, what will happen? You see, compile it and Control S. Now I'll write k equal to 29. I'll write Control S. Control S. Final int k and system dot out dot println k plus k. K is 29. Now I'll write k equal to 21. Control C. Now new k, the latest k. New k. Control S. Now you get error. Variable k might already be assigned, because this will allow to assign only one time, because a blank variable can be assigned only one time. Second time onwards, it is saying it is already assigned, you cannot assign second time. So it gives error here. It gives error. So this is the way you have to use the final. So you must be very careful while using final variable. Similarly, Control S, Control N. I am having, assume, class C and I am having class D, open bracket, close bracket. Here if I write class C and class D, here which is the parent and which is the child? Can you say? No, both are independent here. C is a independent class, D also independent class. But I want to make C as a parent, D as a child. In that case, which keyword I have to write? You have to write a keyword called extends, EXT in this, extend C. If I write this statement, automatically C become parent and D become child. Now here what happened? Whatever the properties are there, for example, here having M property, int I is the property of parent C and void F is the method of my parent. Now, because of inheritance, automatically I and F will be coming to D because of inheritance. But if I say my property should not be utilized by my child, so how to restrict? It should not be inherited, it should not be extended by any child. So if you want to restrict, you have to use a keyword called final. Now if I write final, these two things will not come to child. That means you cannot extend. So if I run this program, so assume here, I'll write here public static void main string arguments array. Here I want to create an object of D obj equal to new D. Okay, and here in the D in F method I want to simply display method message system dot out dot println hello F, some message I want to display. Okay, now the name of the program d dot Java. Now let us run, and of course you would call the F. I want to call this F. How to call? Obj dot F. So automatically method F is called. Yeah. Now B. I have to compile D dot Java, not B. D dot Java. Here when I am compiling, it says that error cannot inherit from final C. As C is a final, you cannot inherit. There itself stops. During compilation itself, it's stopping. It is not allowing me to run also. Compilation time fail. So it indicates what? You cannot extend the final class. Of course, if I remove the final, there is no restriction. You can end it. You see? Control S. Compile it. Control S. Compile it. Yeah. Now there is no error because I have removed the final keyword. Now Java D. If I run, I got hello F because the class C is not final. So I can inherit the property of my parent. That is the advantage of normal class. Whereas if I make it final, if I am rigid, nobody should use the resource of the parent. In that case, put a final. If I write final, I will get error. Yeah, I got error. Okay, so this is the way you have to use the final keyword for three different purposes: before variable, before method, before class. Okay, so thank you. So try to practice all this type of problem.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.